right, Sarah, welcome to the Noble Pen Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Awesome. All right, tell us a little about how you got started writing.
Well, in this incarnation, I started getting serious about self-publishing about a year ago.
Okay.
Probably coinciding a bit with the COVID, staying home so much, not being at work so much.
Right, I hear that quite a bit.
Yeah, right. It kind of allowed me enough time to really consider some things beyond, going outside of the home to make my career.
Right.
But I have been writing my whole life in one form or another. So
That's cool.
this wasn't a huge leap.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is this your first publication, the one that I seen on your Facebook page?
It is my first, I would say it's my first fiction.
Cheating Death? Am I right?
Yes, that's
Cheating
exactly
Death.
right. Cheating Death.
Yeah, I remember.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about it without giving too much away, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure. Cheating Death is a paranormal romance.
Okay.
So the creatures in it are not all humans. And there is a strong romantic section to it. It's also kind of a fast-paced adventure mystery sort of situation too.
Okay.
Without giving too much away, your female main character, her name is Sunday, and she is an empath who can
Cool.
receive and push emotions. And
Okay.
she meets up with a variety of different supernatural creatures that she was not aware of before the beginning of the book. And then they're off on an adventure together to rescue loved ones and, put right what went wrong.
Okay. Sounds pretty cool. Tell us about
Yeah.
your favorite character and why is that your favorite character?
Okay. Certainly.
Doesn't necessarily have to be the main character because sometimes
No,
it's not,
it's actually
right?
it's not. Yeah, it's not. I do love Sunday. But my favorite character kind of snuck up
I love
on
that
me.
name, by the way. I don't mean to interrupt, but Sunday's really, it reminds me of Wednesday from
Yes,
Adam's.
and it was completely like 3 weeks before before Wednesday kind of
Came
hit on
out.
Netflix.
Okay.
I was explaining to somebody, oh, I picked Sunday for these reasons. And she was like, and you know that Wednesday show is going on Netflix. And I thought, oh, good. Okay.
There you go.
But I actually picked Sunday because one of my very favorite stories is by Robert Heinlein. It's a science fiction masterpiece called Friday. And I read it when I was maybe 14, 15 years old, and it just stuck with me all of these years. And when I went to name my first female main character in fiction, I just kept thinking back to Friday and how cool she was,
Oh,
and
that's
went with
cool.
another name of the week. Yeah, yeah.
Did you kind of
Um,
attach how the personality of that character was to how your character is as well, or just the names?
there is a little Friday and Sunday, which is a weird thing
Okay.
to say. Yeah.
That's
Friday
cool.
was kind of merciless, and she was as I remember correctly, and I'm probably going to get some of this wrong. It's been years, but she was one of the cool things I thought was that she had like a little built-in pocket behind her belly button where she could store things. Like she was an espion, she was like a spy, and like
That's really
um,
cool.
and I was just like, God, I really would love a pocket that I didn't have to worry about wearing. That would be very cool.
Absolutely.
Um, I will say that Friday was very sexually liberated, and it called out to a young me in a way. She just kind of was a bit of a hedonist, and I found when I was 14. I mean, I'm 50 years old, so when I was 14, hedonistic women who owned their sexuality weren't all that out there. So
Right.
reading it in the science fiction book was really kind of an important moment for me. And I would say that Sunday is definitely following along that path of, she is looking for her joy, and she's finding it in many different places.
How did you go about the character development for her? Is this something that you've been like thinking about? Like, okay, this is how I want her to
Hmm.
be, or how did you go? How did you approach that?
Well, I started out. Characters to me are really need to have to kind of go through the ringer to come out the other side changed and made better.
Right.
So for me, for each character in my books, and this is going to be a series, so this is a very long character arc, but
That's cool.
I have where they start and kind of the stuff I'm going to put them through and where they will end up at the end.
Okay. And
So
do you make outlines
some
for this or?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I'm a
Okay.
bit of a what I call a plantster. I do have some planning, and then my characters do whatever they're going to do. And so I just try to keep up and try not to fight them too much. But I
Okay.
do have a sense going into it, chapter by chapter, what I want to hit. Sometimes other things get involved, get introduced. Sometimes I change my mind, but I am where I thought I would be at the end of the first book. I'm
Okay.
going into the second. So that has, there's been some changes, but not too many. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Tell us
hmm
something that you learned since you started writing that you wish you knew when you first started.
Definitely that editing takes 3 times as long as the actual writing.
Okay.
I put myself in a bit of a pain point by I wrote my 105,000 words for this novel, and it came pretty quickly and it came pretty easily, and then I sat down to spend 2 weeks editing it, and I just every chapter was taking me 3 hours. I could write a chapter in an hour, but editing it took twice as long,
Right.
and I
Why do you
really
think that
wasn't
is?
aware. I think that's when the fine artistry comes into it. I mean, you've kind of vomited up the chapter, and now you have to go in and really do the work, and you have to do it more than once.
Right.
And there also is a little bit of, for me at least, having to step away so I can see it again with fresh eyes. So I was, kind of like, I'll do these three
Makes
chapters and
sense.
I'm going to skip ahead and do some more. And there was a lot of, I learned a lot about how to keep track of inconsistencies, how to make sure that I was calling things the same thing throughout the book. It was a big learning book.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
hmm
And sometimes it feels like maybe you're kind of writing subconsciously and you need to go back and read through it and say, okay, this really didn't need to be
Yeah,
said. Things of
right.
that nature.
I cut 20,000 words out during the edit.
Oh, wow.
I did.
That's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
a
I did.
substantial amount.
Well, yeah, it was about 125, and then I cut it down to about 104. So yeah, I
Still a
cut some
decent
things that
sized book.
really, yeah, it's a good size book.
Yeah.
And but not really out of the ordinary for this genre.
Okay. Well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna ad lib on that for a second if you don't mind.
Okay.
You
No, go
said
ahead.
that you took out over 20,000
I
words
did.
just out of this novel alone. How did you know where to make those cuts, and how did you know what was right for the book and what wasn't? What thought process went on there to make sure that you were making the right decisions?
Um, I had to I had to kill my darlings a little bit in some of the chapters. Places where I thought I was being really clever, but weren't really adding to the forward momentum of the book. One of the things that I've gotten through the reviews that have come back is that people really like the pace. This book is 105,000 words. It takes place over 4 days. It is action packed, and people really like the pace of how quickly things are happening, how fast they move from one thing to another. And so there were a few places where it felt draggy, or it felt like that entire chapter was just very indulgent.
Right.
And
Okay.
those are the places that I said, okay, that's not important. That isn't helping. That's not furthering the plot. That's not furthering a character. That's just me being cute. Or that's
Okay.
just me having, an idle thought that, oh, wouldn't that be cute if they did this? That's not helping. So those places that went into the pile that I may send out as reader magnets at some point with my newsletters, something like that. But
Okay.
they weren't necessary.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the importance of your main character. Now, how do
Okay.
you know what elements to put into a main character to make it a solid main character for you?
I feel like you really have to have a motivation, and you have to have a strong understanding of your main character's backstory.
Okay.
The things I would say, I made a list in the very beginning, almost like you would do for Dungeons and Dragons, like if you were rolling a character.
Okay.
I didn't actually pull out a dice to a die to do it, but
Yeah.
like down to that sort of feeling of like I know what she is allergic to. I know what her most embarrassing moment was. I know what And it seemed silly to write that in the very beginning, but I'll tell you over and over again, I went, how would she react to this thing happening? And I could kind of call on that knowledge that I had already
Right.
pooled about her
Of
and get
course.
a really good understanding. And sometimes it was nuanced. Sometimes she had an external reaction and an internal reaction that were not the same because of her experiences leading up to this.
That's pretty cool. I like that. Okay. All right. What's the hardest thing about writing for you, or at least the hardest thing about writing this book?
Um, I would say that I am still suffering a little bit with imposter syndrome, and from what I understand from my writerly
Can you
friends, it
explain that a little
never.
bit?
I just have these moments where I wonder, like, what am I thinking? Like, I venerate authors. I have such
Okay.
respect for them, and I'm such a lifelong reader and lover of books that there's a part of me that doesn't. I don't feel like I can be in their rarefied air, And it's a bit of a just an insecurity. I just haven't done it enough. I have written a lot of nonfiction. And I do that well. I know that because I've been paid
Cool.
for years to write articles and to do research. But
That's really cool.
I'm just not super. Um,
Do you feel like that might help you in your fiction writing a little bit?
oh, it certainly does. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I really got very deep into. I was deep into like the Peloponnesian Wars for a good part of it, like trying to research certain things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this book has a great deal of history in it and a great deal of art appreciation and music appreciation and
Okay.
politics. And yeah, I reread The
Let's go into your
Prince.
research if you don't mind. I find it very compelling to find out what people believe is credible information to use and like where to really get solid research for your books. How do you
Right.
know like what to use and what not to use?
Um, well, it's interesting, right? Because I prefer to go with primary sources whenever I can.
Yeah.
So I
Almost
would
like
prefer
writing a
to,
college essay or something.
in a sense, yeah, I would like to go with first person sources. If I'm going to be reading about, if I'm researching Alexander the Great,
Okay.
I prefer to go and read the histories written by his generals,
Reading by
as
his people.
opposed, yeah, by his generals, by his helper, and by the people who lived in contemporaneously with him. Because I feel like allowing to be just distilled for me in a Wikipedia article is quick, but it isn't going to give me those little details that you need to write effectively if you're going to be doing a memory that somebody
Right.
has who lived in that time, right?
Okay.
I need more
You need
than
to
just
dig
what
deep.
Wikipedia. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. I appreciate that. All right. How do you go about marketing this book, or have you not really done much in that sense? Or
I've been really kicking my butt trying to market this book. It's not easy. I'm
yes,
really still learning. But
absolutely.
I managed to get pre-orders together. I don't know how many of them were my family and friends. Let's not think about that too much. But this indie publishing within the romance market has a very strong community of people who are what I would call whales. They read a book a day, and they are
Okay.
looking for this genre. I'm not even kidding. Maybe 600 books a year. Some of them.
That's
They're
crazy.
fast. They're crazy. Yeah, really, really nuts. And they are absolutely really hungry for more.
Mhm.
So all I had to do was try to figure out a way to get my book in front of that group, which I've been doing slowly but surely. Facebook groups are a big part of it. A lot of romance readers belong to these groups to get the names of the next new books and discuss the ones that they've been reading.
Right.
And so I've tried to get myself. I made my author profile for my name months ago. I joined every Facebook group that had to do with my genre and with writing to my market,
Okay.
and began posting and helping and trying to be visible in those places before I even brought my book out.
Okay.
Um, and I had a lot of support from other authors in the genre. I've made some very good friends. They helped me with writing sprints. They helped me with feedback. They found me betas. They found me and helped me find an editor.
That's really
Um,
cool.
Yeah, it just incredibly helpful. Just I'll be
Okay,
paying it back a long time to upcoming authors, you know.
that's cool. Cool.
Yeah, and but it's still a numbers game, and I would love it if it would hit huge, but I'm TikToking almost every day. I'm pushing it on Instagram. I'm pushing it on Messenger. Yeah,
Is there
it's a
anything
lot.
that may seem to work a little better for you, or you wouldn't know that, or?
I'm really kind of I'm what am I 10 days into this, so I don't
Oh
really
wow.
know
Okay. You
yet.
see, I didn't know
Yeah,
how fresh it was.
it released on the 14th, so not even 10 days, 8 days.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Um,
congratulations then is
thank
due at
you.
this point, right?
Yeah,
Your
right.
first publication is very exciting. I
It
published a
is.
book
It is
back at
super.
16. It really didn't do too well, but I remember that feeling.
It's really something different. I have done a lot of things in my life that I've been proud of, but this is a like a very different, very personal,
Right.
thing. I'm not just like,
You
well, my
pour your
team
whole
really did
self
a
and your
lot.
whole heart into it, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have, I think, like 37 reviews so far, and they've all been very good, and I'm
No
really
negatives.
pleased with it. Nothing so far. It's
That's
been 30.
awesome.
I'm like at like a 4.6. That's all been fours and fives. So
That's awesome.
um, I think
Good
that
for
I
you.
did get one. I got one negative review on Goodreads, but that was this woman who tends to review everything negatively, pretty much. And my friends were like, "It's a badge of honor. You gotta drive by the person who can't review anything nicely." She said 7,000 two-star reviews.
You could
Um,
tell that on Goodreads.
yeah, you can absolutely go in and find out who left you a review and what their other reviews look like. It was a wild morning while I was like, "Who is this
You know what
person
I
who
feel
read
you should be able
five
to
books?"
do? I know this maybe goes off subject a little bit, and I apologize for that. But what I feel you maybe should be able to do
Hmm.
is contact the moderators or whomever, the admins of Goodreads,
Right.
then say, hey, listen, look at
I
this
think
person's track record.
I think
Should
that
this
so many
be,
people have done that. I can't imagine that she is out there doing this. She got my book and four other books with 2 or 3 star reviews that same day, like 5 books. There's no way she read all
how
those
you going to
books,
read
right?
5 books in one
Yeah,
day?
there's no way. I mean,
That's
I'm a
not
fast
fair.
reader.
That's really not fair because these
No,
authors,
it's not.
such as yourself,
It's not.
myself, we put a lot into that, and you're just going to go on there, click, click. That's not fair.
Yeah, she's troll. She's a troll. She is this one
Absolutely.
person. And the moment I complained about it in an author group, every single one of them was like, "Was it X?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, yes." And they went, "Oh, you got to drive by. Yeah, it's a badge of honor at this point. She does it to all of us." And I was
Okay.
like, "Okay."
All right.
So
Cool.
obviously, I'm not the first, and I'm sure many people have brought it to Goodreads' attention, and for some reason, they're allowing it to
Nothing's done
continue.
about
Yeah, it's
it. Right.
fine. And she didn't leave any comments, so I have no idea what her issue was with the book, or if there even was one from the blurb she read. I went through and was looking at the ones that she did like, and I was just like, "This is such an odd group. I really think she's doing this at random. Like, there's nothing that
Yeah.
really makes sense here." Uh,
Okay.
but yeah,
All
so
right.
right, so 37 reviews. I've sold a bunch of them. I'm still getting a bunch of page reads. It's not like a hit. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be, but I might make my money back on editing in a month or so, and that's not bad.
That's not bad being a brand new
No,
author. Trust
not
me.
at all. Yeah, not at all.
I
I'm
spent
pretty
like
pleased with that.
$1,200 to publish my first book. I've maybe made
Yeah.
26 so far. You know what I mean? So,
I've done a little better than that, so I'm already.
so you're already
but
doing better than that. So there you
but
go.
um but my first payment to my editor is due like next week on the second book, and I'm already like, here we go again.
There you go. Okay. All right. Let me ask you another one.
Sure.
If you could pick the brain of one mainstream author or even another indie author that you know yourself, who would it
Uh-huh.
be and why that author?
I probably would like to pick the brain of Brandon Sanderson.
Okay. Is that
Um,
mainstream author
he's
or?
a very mainstream author. He is a very, very, very well well regarded fantasy author. He also took over the Wheel of Time for Robert Jordan's books when Robert died.
Okay.
And so the Wheel of Time became his, and he's also written these incredible series. And I very much enjoy his reading. But beyond the writing, I really am impressed with the way that he has approached publishing. He has used GoFundMe's basically to put together these enormous packages of items for his readers and to completely circumvent the publishing, I don't know, gauntlet.
Yeah,
He raised something like $8 million in 3 days or something. I can't even remember the numbers anymore, but it was so overwhelmingly cool to
that's
put
crazy.
and they were these like huge packages, like $300 for all of these books and these incredible hardcover, they all match as a set, and they were books that nobody has even seen yet that he wrote during COVID. He was like, well, I wrote 12 books, so here you go. And there's a part of me that just was just like,
Got to be
wow,
nice, huh?
that is some style that man has with publishing. I
Right.
would love to sit down and chat with him. And I also, his characters really, some of them very much just, I don't know, reverberate with me in a
Okay.
really big way. So beyond just the fangirling that I would do, I would just love to chat with him about, publishing and his approach to it and how he's trying to kind of remove some of the stuff that's between us and our readers. I like
Okay.
that.
All right. Okay. Would you consider killing off a main character that everybody loves? And if you would, why or why not?
Um, this is a tough one. I am writing in a romance market where that is not okay. Um,
Okay.
however, that's suicide for your book, for your reader. I mean, nobody wants to read books where people die in the romance market. They want a happily ever after sort of situation.
Okay.
In fantasy, it's considered okay. I am actually considering killing my main character, but that would be at the beginning of book 3, and she would be resurrected as a vampire. I don't know if that counts for you or not, though.
Well,
So,
hey, it's a plot twist, right?
it's a plot twist. It sure is, right?
So there you go.
So yeah, that'll be a Cliffy for sure. Yeah, she's dead, and we'll see you in book 3.
Okay. What is something about your main character in the book you've already written
Mhm.
that would be an exclusive thing for you to tell right now that only you know about something she feels or something? What could you
Mhm.
give us with that to give the viewers something to draw on and say, hey, all
Okay.
right, now I got to check out that book?
Okay. I would say that a secret about Sunday Prescott. Um, a secret about Sunday Prescott is that she she will not figure out where her supernatural powers come from um, for at least one more book.
Oh,
But the
wow.
reader will.
But does
The
she know
reader
she has
absolutely
them?
will. She knows she has them, but she believes that they are like a genetic fluke. She doesn't think that she has a supernatural ancestry
Okay.
and she will be what I would call an unreliable narrator when it comes to this. I really think that in the next book, the readers will know what's going on, and Sunday will be the one in the dark.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I really like that. I appreciate that. All right.
Right. I'm big on the unreliable narrator. Like people can only tell you from their point of view what's happening.
Right.
And
Of
it would
course.
be really foolish for readers to trust everything that everyone says,
Okay.
you know?
Right. Yeah, for sure. All right. After this series, do you plan on writing anything different, or do you have anything in the works? Anything that you're thinking about?
Yeah. Aside from a I I have a couple of sort of spin-off characters in this series that people are already asking me a lot of questions about,
That's really
and they
cool.
would like to see them get their own books. So I think that this world will continue for a few books after this one's out.
Okay.
But beyond this, if I had to say what would I want to work on next that's
Mhm.
not in this universe, I have an idea about working on a. It's only I've only got about 10,000 words down, and then I got sort of frustrated with it and set it to the side and started writing the series I'm on now. So I'd
Okay.
like to go back to that, and that one is a changeling, so somebody who has been left in a fairy who has been left in the place of a child, has been
Oh,
left
well,
in the earthly realm,
okay.
and is
And
connected
they
to
took
the
the
fairy
child,
that they,
or
yeah, and they took the child to the fairy realm, exactly. What's interesting about it is that it's a non-binary person. So the fairies are sort of searching for this lost child in the earth realm, and they're looking for a girl, but that's not who that person has become.
oh,
And it's I have a non-binary person in Cheating Death as well. You would
okay.
ask me about my favorite character, and it's a
Yeah.
jaguar shifter who is non-binary and just a wonderful human being who can also shift into a jaguar. Um,
Pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, they are very cool. And in this next series, I have these two characters who are um, switched for each other, and they've both had a very hard time. The human in the fairy world and the fairy in the human world for
Okay.
completely different reasons, and they're kind of pushed together like glue um, to try to figure out what happened when they were born, to figure out that sort of
Oh,
mystery, to get their to get the power back for the fairy, to get the Earth Child back to Earth, and they don't get along very well in the beginning, and that kind of drives the story forward. And I don't know, there was just something about it when I was writing it in the very beginning, the first 5 or 6 chapters before I started kind of lost my interest in it.
right.
That was just extremely compelling. Their sort of how they were the same, but how they were completely different at the yeah, and how they both thought the other one, that whole grass is green thing, like the fairy thinking, well, he's had this great life and in the human realm, and the human thinking, well, she took my whole, she's been living my life in the fairy realm, and neither of them's had a good time, but they don't realize it. They've
Right.
yeah, yeah.
That's very cool.
I don't know if I'm explaining it well. I think it'll be better once I, flesh it out a bit.
No, it sounds very interesting. I really like the idea that the human or whomever got taken and put in the fairy realm, and there's a fairy put here, but they're looking
Right.
for a non-binary person that
Yeah.
is something different than they used to be. Now they don't know what they're looking
They
for.
don't know what they're looking for. Right. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah.
like the thought process there.
Right. And they have like a rune that is keeping their powers. The fairy person has a rune keeping their powers. It's been like scratched on their bone in their arm, like it's
Okay.
etched on the bone, and they break their arm. And that's how their power starts to leak out, because that rune is broken, like
Oh,
actually.
okay.
And that's how they become aware that, holy moly, I'm not just a human.
Okay.
It's because they actually get injured, and that's how they figure it out. And I don't know. It was all
Pretty
just
cool.
feeling very clever and cool when I started writing it. And then I was
Absolutely.
like, wait. So
Right.
that might be the next thing. Yeah.
You mentioned shifting. Let's talk about that for a second. How do
Sure.
how do you
Okay.
go about picking who gets to shift? How do they get to shift? Where do you and what they get to shift into? Like, where do you get these thoughts?
Hmm.
Is there a rule process to this? Is there
Oh,
not?
a rule process. I don't think there's a rule process, but I definitely went into it wanting to have what I would call a mixed harem. So this book is a why choose reverse harem, which is not a great word for it anymore, but the idea being here that you have one female character who has multiple love interests in the book, and she doesn't have to choose. So it's a poly book in a sense, a sort of a, I guess we call it a polycule. So in this case, I knew that I wanted to have a mixed harem. I wanted to have a couple of different types of supernatural creatures that she was interacting with. And I knew I wanted to have a very ancient vampire who was thousands of years old. and very shut down. And I knew that I wanted to have a young shifter who was finding their way and coming out of a difficult situation. And that's my Jaguar. And I knew that I wanted to have a wolf, who is another one in there, who's an alpha who is displaced from his pack. And then I also have this other shifter who is what I call a true shifter, and he can become anything.
Oh, wow.
So
That's cool.
yeah, so he shifts into, in this book, he shifts into, let's see, a sugar glider, an owl, a jaguar, a tiger, an elephant. There are a lot of shifts for this one person. And Sunday is just like, I want to pet all the animals, shift into everything so I can see it. And she's kind of adorably just flummoxed by the amount of animals that she can pet because one of her boyfriends can shift into anything. And I've gotten feedback from the writers that they really love that part of it. They love the idea of the animal sides of these people's brains sort of pushing their way forward occasionally and doing things that feel very like the jaguar has a string that he carries around with him everywhere that he plays with.
Okay.
And he calls it his emotional support string. And he occasionally like pushes his way in front of other people. He does a lot of really cat-like things, sits on things, wants to be higher than everybody else.
Okay.
He has all these ways that he does these little cat things. The wolf does the same thing, has some wolfy things he does. It seems like
So you put a lot of
really
thought
like
into
it.
that then.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We want to make sure that you really are feeling that there's a divided soul here,
Okay.
and that they're constantly in a sort of a little bit of a fractious way dealing with what's inside, like keeping those impulses, and kind of having to filter them, going, can I do that? And not upset the humans around me.
Right. Do they all know that they
and
can shift, or does it just happen to them one day or whatever?
in this book, everyone has come out of packs or families that included shifters, so they all knew that they could shift.
Okay.
Yeah, I would imagine that if somebody were just to have, I mean, I would imagine that happens sometimes. Somebody gets separated, a child gets adopted by a
And you have
family
no
that doesn't
idea.
know.
Yeah.
At 13, you're suddenly howling at the moon and shit. And yeah, there are some really good books out there that follow that sort of like shifter out of a pack. What do you do moments? Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
But
cool.
in this one, Sunday is the only one who isn't aware of the greater supernatural world. The rest of the people in it already have knowledge about what's out there
Okay.
and act as the ones to sort of lead her and guide her through.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm interested to figure out this, specifically with this situation, is with all your shifter characters that you got going on, how do you implement a good plot twist when everything's kind of twisting on its own to begin with?
I would say that you have to use using outside elements for adding pressure to situations helps a great deal.
Okay.
And I look at this in two ways. In fact, when I was writing it, I had two plot lines going. I have internal and external. This is a poly a poly as well as a menage sort of romance.
Right.
And without getting too technical about it, it means that the men were also interested in each other. And so was the non-binary character with both Sunday and one of the other men. So in addition to having our heroine needing to get to know all these people and develop feelings for them, and in this first book she really only figures it out with one of them. The rest of them are all sort of up in the air, still figuring their stuff out. They also had to get used
So
to
is that like a meant to be kind of situation for her then, or?
The one that she has it figured out with what we would call a fated mate situation. Like the moment that shifter saw her and smelled her, he knew that she was the only one, like forever for him. And
Right.
he convinced her pretty quickly that that's how it was. And she kind of just accepts things as they come. She's a very open-minded individual.
Okay.
The rest of them have their stuff to work out. The vampire is really closed off and doesn't want to put himself at risk by opening himself up to anyone. And the other shifters have their own things to work out. But I also had to work out their relationships with each other, which are becoming friends with some, friendly in some cases, nearly paternal in others, and then also sexual romantic in others.
Okay.
So I had two plot lines as I was writing. One is the external, being attacked by demons. They start out in a casino, and they're under siege by these demons that are coming after them, and they don't know why.
Right.
Okay, that's driving the whole group of them together, getting them stuck together to a place to sort of hide out and try to, regather themselves.
Yeah.
And then along with that, we also have the continuing, people, getting closer, people exchanging their background stories, people dropping the hints for what's coming next. They go to Sunday's home state, which is Mississippi. A big part of this book is that she's a Southern girl.
Okay.
She's living in Nevada. She's living in Las Vegas, but her home state is Mississippi. She lives in the poorest county in the poorest state, and she is a very salt of the earth girl at heart.
Okay.
And she brings these people to her little home, her little hometown, because it's a good place to hide out. And they meet the rest of her family, which includes, her crazy, not very nice stepmother, her really cool dad who has his own powers, her twin sisters who turn out to be psychic, her cousin who works for the FBI and comes to help them find what's missing. She has to bring all these people that are kind of dropping in and out of their lives as well, chapter by chapter. And I would say that is kind of how I kept track of it.
Okay.
The external stuff, and then also making sure that the relationships got all the time that they needed, all the time spent together that they needed to do.
Wow, that sounds really, really interesting. Like definitely another book of another episode that seems like I'm going to have to read.
Oh, well, that's not such a bad thing, is it?
No, absolutely not. I'm just going to have a million books to read. So before we wrap it up here, it seems like we had a great podcast. I appreciate everything. You want to show everybody your cover in the back again and tell them where to find it, if you have it with you?
Sure. Yeah, let me bring it up. Let me see if I can bring this up real quick here.
I don't know if you'll be able to share, maybe.
I might be able to. I might be able to share my screen
just for the viewers that watch the show, I want to be able to see the cover and what it looks like. Make sure they're getting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to bring it up here. That might be the easiest way to go. So it's called Cheating Death, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited, which is very nice if you happen to have that subscription, so you can just check it out.
But you could buy like a paperback copy at Amazon as well if you wanted.
The paperback should be ready this week. Right now, it's ebook only. Can you see that? Oh, wait, that's backwards. Hold on. Let's see.
No, I can see it.
Can you see it? It's mirrored, but yeah.
It says Cheating Death. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, great. And
The House of Marchese Saga Book 1.
Yeah, The House of Marchese Saga Book 1. And the houses are the vampiric houses.
Okay.
The vampires kind of run the world in this universe.
Sounds very cool.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. I will have this spun down, and I hope to have you on again, maybe once your next one comes out.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm sure you could see, I'm just trying to build a network of authors here, have a million videos for people to be able to reference, and as well as to be able to get your work out there.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
That's no problem.
Have a very happy holidays.
You as well. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.